Plant seeds are amazing. When you plant them into the ground under the right conditions, they grow into something that looks completely different. An oak tree looks nothing like an acorn. Yet if the oak tree is in a good place, it will grow more acorns to make more oak trees. Jesus turned his disciples into seeds. The disciples were used to going to the synagogue every week to gather to worship God. The Hebrew word synagogue means the gathering place. In most villages there would only have been one gathering place, and it would have been used whenever the community needed to gather for anything. Once a year, every Jew was expected to visit the temple in Jerusalem. It was where they would meet with God and make sacrifices to pay for their sinfulness during the past year. Jesus showed his disciples that God would make each of them a place where he would dwell, and people would be able to find God through them. Through the sacrifices they made for God, other people would find release from their sin. Jesus showed them the way. The seeds that Jesus planted turned into temples. The Apostle Paul also uses this analogy of the followers of Jesus being seeds. He too speaks of the followers of Jesus as being seeds needing water and care and growing into what God makes them. Following on from that analogy, Paul then describes the followers of Jesus as precious stones, laid upon the foundation of Jesus and being built into the temple of God. This was profoundly shocking for the Jews. For generations they had been taught that the way to God was by bringing sacrifices to the priests. The priests would do the right things with the sacrifices, and then the people would be blessed by God throughout the year. The prophet Malachi tells the people that because they have not brought their full tithes, 10% of their income, into the temple treasury, they have not received God's blessings. That is why their harvests have been blighted by disease, infestation, and drought. Indeed, many in the church today argue that if we only gave 1/10 of our income to God, then the church's problems would be over. Well, it is true that the church here doesn't have enough money to pay for the minister or for its buildings. However, the real problem facing the church is that the people around us don't think that God is to be found in us or through us. When they have a problem, they don't come and ask us to pray with them for God to show them the solution. They go looking elsewhere because they think these other sources of help are more reliable than God. The first time that Paul went to Philippi in modern-day Greece, he was arrested and thrown into jail. He and Silas sang praises to God through the night, and the other prisoners were amazed. Instead of telling them to shut up and go to sleep, they listened. Suddenly there was an earthquake. The ground shifted and all the doors opened. However, instead of escaping, Paul and Silas stayed put, and so did the other prisoners. God was at work, and they wanted to know what would happen. Even the jailer was convinced, and he and his whole family became believers and followers of Jesus. The church in Philippi grew and survived. It was some years later, when Paul was in jail again, perhaps in the city of Ephesus in present-day Turkey, that Paul wrote to the Philippians. They had heard that he was in jail, and he wants to encourage them. It's no wonder they were discouraged. When Paul was with them, he was only in jail one night. This time, Paul was in jail for a while. Yet, as is common, his friends and supporters in the city were supporting him. In those days, you didn't get fed in jail. If no one supported you, then you died. Your family and friends would bring what you needed. Paul writes to the Philippians that what has happened to him has actually helped to spread the good news about Jesus. It's not what the Philippians expected. Indeed, you can hear in Paul's words that it was a surprise to him too. The whole imperial guard in the city have come to hear about Jesus. It was because Paul was preaching about Jesus and refusing to deny the divinity of Jesus that Paul had been put in jail. Indeed, he says that the brothers and sisters of the church have been made more confident by Paul's imprisonment and are speaking about Jesus with even greater boldness and without fear. It's not what Paul expected. Have you ever tried to pin down a melon seed with your finger? The harder you press, the faster it squirts away to the side. It's almost impossible to predict which direction it's going to take. You can't pin God down. Whenever you think he is confined and constrained, he pops up somewhere else, large as life. Indeed, that's exactly what happened to Jesus. They killed him and locked him into a tomb. Then, on the third day, there he is, walking to Emmaus with his two friends who don't even recognize him, at least at first. Paul and Silas got shut in jail. During the night, an earthquake released them. A similar thing happened to the Apostle Peter, who was jailed in Jerusalem. During the night, an angel came and let him out. Peter thought it was a dream. But once they were outside and the angel left him, Peter knew it had really happened. God isn't to be found inside church buildings. He is only to be found inside people, especially inside those who are looking for him. Jesus said, "Those who look for him will find him." But if we don't let God live inside us so that other people can find him through us, then the church here will wither and die. It will crumble and fall. Instead, it will pop up in a new form, in a new way. Indeed, it is up to us to let God lead us and bring in these new ways and new forms that will draw others to find God through us. For the last 50 years or more, the church has been broken. It is gradually shriveling up. We need to let God bring us to new life in his ways and in his truth. He prunes us to make us fruitful. Amen.